Good evening, everyone. We're so happy that our Tulane family members have joined us for tonight's webinar, which is on supporting your student through academic planning and course registration. My name is Penny White. I'm the Director of Family Programs at Tulane. I'm very happy that you have joined us, and I am delighted to present to you my colleagues from the College Advising office at Tulane that is a part of Newcomb Tulane College. So they will be the panelists and they'll present their information and then allow some time at the end for you to submit questions in the question field on your screen. And we'll get through as many of those as we can tonight. And we're delighted that we're all here together so that you can learn more about how to support your student through this process. They will do the work, but the more you know, the more you can be a support for them and perhaps a guide and an encourager for them to approach this planning process for their academic progress at Tulane with a lot of intention and good guidance. So I'm going to turn things over to Heather now, and I will join you again at the question time.
Thank you, Penny. As Penny said, my name is Heather Cooper. I'm the Associate Director of Student Engagement. I've been with College Advising for about 12 years, and I basically support the advisors in supporting your students. So I'm excited to be here tonight, and Blake Lewis is joining me tonight. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Blake. I'm the Assistant Director for the Liberal Arts, Architecture, Public Health, and Exploratory Continuing Advising team. So I supervise academic advisors who, if you have a student sophomore through senior year, they'll have one of my advisors as their advisor if they're in one of those schools. And I've been with Tulane for about 3 years. So excited to be with you all.
Thanks, Blake. Next slide. So the purpose of tonight's webinar, as Penny mentioned, is to provide some information and resources and advice to help you kind of understand the way the big picture framing is working for registration and advising. And I think learning a little bit about how we're preparing to support your students is a helpful way for you to gather information and share information with your student that's appropriate. Like Penny said, not doing it for them, but offering them kind of some of the framework that they might be missing when they're on the ground trying to figure things out on their own. We're going to cover a few different things. I'm going to quickly touch on just our advising model at Tulane. The word advisor gets thrown around a lot. There's lots of people and supports on campus, so it's important for me to help you distinguish who's who. The advisor role and our responsibility in registration versus the student role and their responsibility in registration. I realize that that's spelled wrong, so apologies. How you can support your student is part of the game here. Registration reminders, so again, that you know some of the framework and the detail things that your student might not realize they're kind of need to work around. Some resources, and then time for questions. So our advising model is fairly unique. We have what our advising professionals across the country would call kind of a combined advising model. So we have the college advising office that is the undergraduate in the undergraduate college, Newcomb Tulane College. We are a generalist office that offers kind of a broad range of support for students to make sure in particular that they get started and get a strong onboarding experience into college and that they get supported developmentally each year and holistically as needed, and then that they really just graduate, right? The important part here. So we don't oversee any particular major or set of classes. We literally just help your student to navigate the big picture curriculum questions, policy questions, and getting started or wrapping things up and we really specialize in that Newcomb-Tulane College core. So our advising office lives in that undergraduate college alongside of our partners within Newcomb-Tulane College that also offer student support, success coaching, career services and coaching there. We've got study abroad advising, which is specific to the study abroad experience and the programs and what those programs offer. Fellowship advising, so your students can have an advisor that actually talks them through application processes. Within our office, we have a couple different areas. Blake introduced himself as one of the core college advisor kind of team leads. He oversees the liberal arts plus team. We have another core college advising team that oversees the science and business students. But that's for sophomores on up to seniors. We have a first year advising team that specifically focuses on first year students and that specific kind of onboarding experience because that's got a lot of transitions and a lot of things that are unique to that first year. So we have 3 different teams that do kind of serve 3 different purposes. We also have a small but mighty staff of pre-professional advisors. Those folks are extremely well versed in how to present the best application possible to med schools, law schools, but also other pre-health, pre-dental, PA schools, nursing schools, and so forth. So really supporting students through understanding what their requirements are for those studies, but also for preparing things like applications and letter packets and stuff like that. And then we have a great little team of peer college advisors. We really believe in peer-to-peer support. So we have usually about 10 students who work with us year-round to support students in their kind of from a student perspective so that students might feel more comfortable asking another student before they would feel comfortable asking a professional staff member certain types of questions. The student experience is really unique, and our peer advisors are great at giving that kind of on the ground perspective.
Heather, could I also note, I think it's important to remember that when your student declares a major in their respective department, once they decide on that, they will receive also a major advisor who we will refer to a lot from sophomore to senior year on major curriculum, substitutions for major classes, figuring out what classes to take abroad. So they'll get another advisor on top of the support we provide in advising specific to their major.
Thank you. Yeah, they'll always be assigned to someone in our office as a centralized advising office. And once they declare that major, they'll also have a faculty or staff, but major advisor within their department to help them with those major questions. Our role is to really be champions of the NTC core curriculum, making sure that students understand that what they need to do, but also where they might have overlaps between requirements and things like that. We're here to help them talk through kind of stressful moments. We can't always fix things, right? We're not fixers, but we can support your students in making good decisions. And sometimes just talking that through and unpacking the options together will be the way to do that. We often find ourselves encouraging balance. Your students are extremely ambitious and they are always trying to do a million things, oftentimes at one time. And while that is extremely admirable, it is also something that leads to burnout. So it's super important for our advisors to remind your students to look for balance. And it really is a self-directed balance that they need to choose for themselves. I don't know your students. Some students can handle 5 or 6 math and science classes all at once, and some need to do that one class at a time. And there is no judgment. All of that, every path is fine. It's just finding what the balance is for that student in that situation, in that given semester. Our advisors are great with course recommendations. We learn a lot actually from our students about what courses are working or not working for them. So we have a good grasp on what the courses are that they might need. But again, as they get more immersed in their major, they may also need to talk to a major advisor to get the specifics from their major advisors. I certainly don't know anything about upper level chemistry classes, for example, and I don't think you want me telling your student which which chemistry class to take that's right for them. That's definitely a departmental question. We do refer with those things in mind to specialists, to schools, to majors, to minors. We also connect students to other resources. So if your student is having a particularly stressful moment and needs counseling support or case management support, or even just success coaching to kind of help with their task management, those things are all things that we're kind of constantly on the lookout for and constantly assessing in our meetings. And then we look for and help your student kind of figure out what registration issues they are up against. We become really, really good at reading the schedule and navigating the schedule of classes in our jobs. And I've done this for many, many years. So we usually are very well familiar with an issue that your student might be coming up against for the first time and not even realize was something to pay attention to. Like, oh, I didn't know that course had a co-requisite. I didn't realize that course required you to declare a major before you took it. Those kinds of things are the things that we can help with. Or they might have heard about a class from a friend and thought everybody has to take this one calculus class. That is a myth. Not everybody needs calculus. There are requirements that are called math and science, but there are a number of classes that can fall into that category. And we want to help your student kind of sort through what's available and what's a good fit for them, and when is it a good fit to take it. So that's our role. You can forward the slide. The students are responsible for kind of knowing their place in time and space, right? So first and foremost, they need to identify when their registration will open. Every student is given a registration ticket time. It is based solely on the credits that they've earned at the college level. So it doesn't incorporate AP credits or IB credits, but it does incorporate classes that transferred in from a college experience that they might have had in a summer or prior to coming to Tulane. And it counts up all the credits that they have finished at Tulane already. So as you can imagine, our students with the least amount of credits will register last later in the cycle. And those who register first are going to be the ones with the most credits, assumedly the ones closest to graduation. That is the way it's always been here. And that's the way the ticket times are divvied out. There are ticket times listed on the Tulane's registrar's website if you're curious. But your student needs to find their time at the top of their Gibson portal when they're logged in. We help students to address or at least route them to the office that can help support through registration holds. The biggest number of holds that we see right now are going to be immunization holds for new students who might have missed getting in some important paperwork at the beginning of the semester, or accounts receivable holds for funding things that are happening through the billing office that haven't happened on schedule. So sometimes parents are involved in helping students navigate those holds as well. Holds are also posted across the student tab in Gibson when your student logs in. So if that's something that you two are looking at together, that might be a good place to guide their eyes to make sure that they don't have any registration issues that they're up against before they even begin. It's really important that the students look at the academic resources they have around campus. I have a lot of students who will say, "Oh, I'm just waiting for my meeting with my advisor." If a student walks in with no pre-thought about what they might want to be taking or might be required to take into a meeting, that meeting we can still meet with them, but it's probably not going to cover as much ground because we're going to spend more time with the resources that they already have at their fingertips. So it's really important, I think, for students to kind of at least pay attention to what their major requirements might be, their core curriculum, and then everybody has something that's called the DegreeWorks audit, which is basically kind of a lens by which they can view the classes that they've taken and see what boxes have been checked in the list of things that they need. And using that resource is a huge step, but also looking at the catalog and, like I said, the department website and those kind of things together really make for a stronger meeting when we do meet with your students. We really find that students at this point in time get really excited oftentimes about making planners and making the perfect schedule and then having to change things around. That is a very normal thing. And I give great kudos to those students who bring in their planner, bring in a plan to work with. I would also recommend making a class wish list. Maybe it's a list that's a little longer than the number of classes any student would realistically take, but it's very important that those students take a broader look at like, okay, when that fills up, I'll take this. And if that fills up, I'll take this. And this looks like a requirement. And if it fills up, I don't know what to do. So let me make sure I ask an advisor or ask my major advisor that question because I need a backup to that. Those kinds of questions will be useful for your student. They're still learning. I don't expect them to know all these things, but these are all things that are really helpful for them. Registering on time at the ticket time, calmly and orderly, will help all students to kind of register, do the best they can, add themselves to wait lists if they need to, and really just flex that necessary flexibility in this process. So that is the student's role, is to really just to kind of think about all of the things that they might need to take, might want to take, and then bring their questions to one of their advising touch points, which we'll talk about soon. So these are some of the more nitty-gritty details of how to prepare for registration. So the little green boxes across the top are the quick and dirty list, right? Like create a scheduled wish list, and they might use the catalog, they might use their degree audit, they might use their class schedule to search different classes and different categories of classes, either by interest or topics. It can be a little overwhelming, especially for students who might be coming from a smaller school or for students who are exploratory and not exactly sure what they want to do. If your student is particularly stuck, kind of even getting started, I would ask them what they don't want to do. Really knock off the list, like, what do you want to make sure does not happen next semester? And oftentimes it'll be something, I want to take less writing classes, or I took too many science classes this semester all at once. I kind of want to, stretch that out a little. So getting them and what classes did they really love? And so it might be, oh, I love the sociology class I was in. Maybe I want to take more of that. So sometimes just getting started is just a conversation. But because the students are kind of talking to themselves a lot, sometimes it's helpful to have like an adult who's been through it to just kind of ask some questions. And again, we do that in our meetings, but it's another way in which you can support your student because you probably talk to them a little more often than we do. Asking their questions doesn't have to be perfect questions, but coming to college advisors through the various ways they can meet one-on-one with us. They can come through our drop-in hours. They could go chat with a peer advisor if they're just a little lost on getting started. Talking to the pre-professional advisors can be useful if they have pre-med or pre-law kind of in their minds as a goal for themselves. And then I already said the peer college advisors are great with the mechanic questions like, hey, why won't it let me register? Oh, well, your ticket time hasn't opened. It opens at 8 a.m. and today's 4 p.m. the day before. So you need to do, so the peer advisors know a lot about the day-to-day classes that students might take, but they also are able to answer. They've also been through it a number of times, so they're able to answer good questions there. It's important before registration, before that ticket time, I would recommend they kind of put together a schedule and then just let it sit. And then like the night before or a few hours before registration time actually opens where they can register, I recommend they take a look at it and start looking at, okay, this one's full, but I can add myself to the wait list. I'm going to, because I can't register for this one right away, I'm going to register for this other one that's on my backup list. So I'm going to move that into my planner, and I'm going to think about registering for that one at my ticket time in a few hours. I think it's really important here for them to think about what classes have some availability and what don't. Like, it doesn't help to build a planner that before registration even begins or right after seniors register are mostly full classes. You want to have a variety of, like, these have some space in them, they have available seats, and these over here might be a bit of a reach. They might run out of seats, but that's okay because I have these backup options. So reviewing course availability is a specific skill. And usually once they do this a few times, they learn it, but sometimes they're coming across it for the first time, or sometimes they feel like they're always up against this. And that's where we can kind of help set them straight. Looking for errors. Anytime somebody's on their registration page, they'll see a yellow error message if there's a problem. And so keeping an eye out on the register add drop page for them is a really important kind of skill again. Not being a declared major, the class might only be first people in a certain cohort. They have the class in the cart and they're ready to register for the class, but it actually has a co-requisite lab that they haven't added yet. Those are all common registration errors. So just kind of before the ticket time opens, looking around for any issues that might come up when they submit their registration. And then at the registration ticket time, whether it usually comes every hour on the hour throughout the period of registration, we just have too many students to register all at once, which is why we have a ticket time system. They'll log on though, and they'll go to their registration page. They'll have everything listed, no yellow error messages, no holds, and they can press submit registration as soon as the portal opens. If the portal opens and they are putting things on wait list, they'll need to open it, change the drop-down menu to wait list, and then submit that so they put themselves on the wait list. And then there's a current schedule tab that they can click on and see what they've actually registered for. And it even shows you little tentative boxes for the waitlisted classes as well. So that's the nitty gritty of it. And that's a lot of information. So like Penny said, let it just wash over you. It's not complicated. It's a step-by-step process. But again, we have a lot of students, a lot of programs, a lot of classes. So it can be a lot for some students the first or second time. So back to the whole purpose of this webinar, how can you support your students? Reflecting on what classes they'll enjoy and what they'll excel in. I don't think you need to decide for them that they can't do a certain schedule, but you could say, hey, how does it feel to think about taking all of those at one time? Like, do you want to spread those out? Does that look like a balanced schedule to you? That kind of reflexive questions can be really useful. And sometimes you don't know. I mean, sometimes you don't know if a class is heavy writing or heavy in some area that your student is not heavy testing and your student doesn't love that. So one thing I'd like to say, even at the early point in right now during registration, is just sometimes you're going to have to get to the class and find out what it's like. And then make a decision. So sometimes having that flexibility even after you register is really important. But at this moment, you're just helping them unpack what kind of classes would you enjoy? What would you excel in? How can that balance with the things that you maybe don't love as much, but you do need to take in order to graduate with a Tulane degree? Helping them to discuss their academic plans. There are going to be some plans that need additional time or expense. We have a 5-year architecture program that's going to have a 5th year involved. There might be summer classes that a student could take because for that particular student, it is easier to stretch things out or take a little less in a given semester. Your students who want to study abroad, how does that fit into the plan? Is it going to be a full semester abroad during a fall or spring term, or is it better for your student to be here on campus, get involved in the opportunities here on campus, and do a study abroad program in the summertime? What about internship experience? Is it better to take an unpaid or paid internship? Those are all conversations that are really personal to you and your family and your student. And so it's really important it's helpful for them to know walking into a conversation with us what they actually are kind of like have access to do. We have a lot of resources here too. So if they feel like they don't have certain access or don't have certain information, or maybe they just couldn't afford a program or a class during the summer, tell them to come chat with their advisors and see what kind of resources might be available. There are certain scholarships and things like that that can be applied for pretty much now for summer opportunities, but next term this time also. So getting them to check in with their advisor, but I would also say check in with the advising team. So sometimes an individual advisor is actually sick and out for a while. Sometimes an individual advisor has shifted into a new position and they're changing. So sometimes the individual advisor is the right person to go to, and I want them to go to that person. And then other times I want everybody to know that if that advisor is not available for some unknown reason, there is an entire team behind us, behind that one advisor. So Blake has somebody on his team. He's got a team of 7 advisors, 8 advisors. He's got somebody out that day. Everybody else is pitching in and seeing students every day. So that might be kind of more as a that day thing, or it could be that there's virtual advisor or drop-in advising opportunities for students. So talking to the college advisor is important. Talking to our team is really the ultimate goal. So if the student is not getting what they need, they're welcome to escalate it, which is why I usually do these webinars along with somebody else in my leadership team so that we can make sure you all have some names and faces to put together to support your student. The college advising website has a lot of resources for registration and appointment options, stuff about pre-med, pre-health. We're always working on it and building it. If you have, and we always have a lot of information there that could be useful, but it's also the one place to make an appointment as well with any of our advisors. For quick questions or just kind of a schedule check to make sure students on the right direction during registration, we will have these drop-in hours. We encourage you to help keep your student calm in almost all cases. And if you're really panicking, I would recommend reach out to one of us or me. I'm a parent too, I get it. But sometimes getting that student, giving that student your fears will sometimes just spiral them a little. So helping them to kind of manage their expectations, like, hey, this is a normal part of the process, and encourage them to seek help from the entire team when they feel stuck is really going to be the message I give to you, and I want for your students as well. Do next slide. Like I said, lots of flexibility. There's a million options. Majors and minors overlap and work together in a million different ways at Tulane, which is amazing and complicated. So there's usually a lot of time to adjust and fit something in later. And there certainly is time to change your mind or change registration change your registration prior to the start of the semester. A lot of times people kind of get to classes and there'll be a lot of changes during even the first week. So a class that a student was not able to get into in April had a couple seats left over in August due kind of the ebb and flow of the summer and different situations changing. So not all is lost if something doesn't happen in April. Usually there's a little time after that to adjust the schedule, to look at it again, and to look for classes with new availability. And then there are times when departments will add new classes or seats to classes unexpectedly. So sometimes people are happily surprised to see the class that they had on the top of the list was available. There's time between now and next semester. They're, stressing and getting kind of wrapped up in that. It's not going to manifest better outcomes for anybody, especially because we know that registration is not the only thing students are doing right now. Like they're also up against the end of the semester and they've got other things to do right now. So if registration is just a bit much for them, tell them to do the best they can. finish out the semester, and then come back to it and kind of make their tweaks or changes. It's much, much more important for your student to not be overly stressed than it is for them to have the perfect schedule the moment their time ticket opens. Your student, like I mentioned, has what we call the add period. This is the 2 weeks at the beginning of each semester where students can change their schedule and add new things. They can drop beyond that, but it is important to note that after the add deadline, they can't just add anything else after the first 2 weeks. So there are certain rules around adding new classes. So it's really important for your student to kind of start the semester with their list of backup options in case they walk into a class that they're like, nope, this is not the one for me. So making those adjustments early and talking to your students, hey, how's it going? That sounds like it's a red flag. It doesn't sound like you're super excited about that class. Is there something else you want to go check out this week while the first couple days of classes are still rolling? That might be a way to do things. Again, we have all summer to talk about it. I actually am very much more mellow about spring semester because when we register for fall, we do have a lot of time. But that doesn't mean that students shouldn't be thinking about their backup options and remaining flexible. Next slide. All right. Couple registration reminders. The priority registration is what we call priority registration and exists on the calendar is a period of time. It actually opens this semester April 2nd for very few populations, graduate students, some student athletes on April 2nd. And registration ticket times for a majority of the rest of our students will be between April 7th and April 11th. So that period is our busiest period of the year. Every registration period is one of our busiest periods. So just so you know, that is, it's an ongoing kind of 2 week process for us. Schedule changes can be continued throughout the add deadline at the beginning of the semester. Time tickets are based on credits. They cannot be changed. If your student does have transfer credit that they're bringing in from somewhere, that might tweak a ticket time if it is able to be posted in time. But we make no guarantees that transfer credit that comes in during priority registration will get posted before a student registers. So time tickets are just based on credits and cannot be changed. What should your student register for? The bare minimum is a full-time schedule. That means they are eligible for their scholarships. They are eligible to remain a full-time college student. Minimum is 12 credits. So your student should be actively registered in at least 12 credits after they register for classes. That does not count the waitlisted classes, just things that they actually have a seat in and their name on the list for. We usually recommend 15 credits, 16 credits per semester to stay on track for graduation. At the moment their ticket time opens, they will be allotted 17 credits. When everybody has had a chance to register once, they will be able to register for up to 19 credits. That's plenty of credits. Students really don't need and shouldn't be taking a ton more of those credits. That said, if students have certain things that they need above and beyond these limits, they should come after the end of the semester, after the current grades have posted, to talk with their advisor. Waitlists have some limits. They can waitlist for up to 3 classes. They cannot register for a class of one section and then waitlist for the other. So they prefer this professor of economics over here, but there's seats in this section of economics. They're going to have to choose. Am I going to register or am I going to waitlist? Okay, so that is just important nuances. You don't have to know all this stuff. We will teach your students these things, but it's just helpful to understand sometimes when students are in it, they're trying to figure something out, and at the end of the day, they've already waitlisted 3 classes, or they're already registered for Spanish and they're trying to waitlist for a different section. So they're just not understanding that there are some mechanics that just aren't letting them move forward. Blake's going to tell us a little bit about where to find our team during registration.
Yes, I'm always out there on the ground during registration time. And so students can find us in many different ways throughout registration. In the mornings, all of our advisors will take one-on-one appointments during that priority registration week from April 7th to 11th. And so students can schedule appointments with their assigned advisor up to 2 weeks prior to the actual appointment. So if today is Wednesday, March 26th, I can schedule an appointment with my advisor as far as Wednesday, April 9th, which is during priority registration week. So if your students are starting to notice that their advisor's availability one-on-one is kind of sparing, that's normal because you can, schedule appointments up to 2 weeks in advance. Our advisors really do start getting inundated with appointments during this time. And so if they're noticing that they can't see any appointments in the next 2 weeks, that's normal. We remind them to check the next day because that's when, more appointments open up for 2 weeks in the future of that date. And so that's a way that they, you can coach them into, how to find an appointment during our like high priority time. We offer both 15 and 30-minute appointments. And then advisors offer both virtual and in-person appointments depending on when they're in person in the office and everything. During priority registration from the 7th to the 11th, we have virtual advising all the time, every day of the week from Monday to Thursday during the normal semester. We have a virtual advisor of the day available. But during priority registration, we expand this a little bit, Monday through Friday, 1 to 4 p.m. And so they can also just go into the virtual advisor, which is just a Zoom room they can join, and then advisor will see them. All of those, people who run our virtual advisor are, advisors. And so sometimes your student might log on and their advisor might be there. So we offer virtual advisor, all the time, but also especially during priority registration. And then we have various drop-in events that students can find on WaveSync, which is our event, planning and, searching software for students. And so you can see an image there on the left that lists some of NTC's college advising events. So we'll find all of our drop-in events and everything throughout registration there. And then, of course, as we've discussed, peer college advisors, students are available to drop in, meet with students between 11 and 3 Monday through Friday in Mussafer Hall, which is where the college advising office lives. So those are all different ways that students can, find advising and connect with us. We usually do remind students, like during registration, it's not the end of the world if you can't have an appointment with your advisor before you register. We encourage them to use their resources, drop into virtual advisor if they really do have a question they need to have answered before they submit their registration. They can come see us during the drop-in period and ask questions of an advisor there. But we try to remind students that even if you don't get an appointment before registration, you'll certainly be able to get one after registration when you can make schedule tweaks and corrections and things like that, as Heather was saying, that students have months to build their ideal schedule for the fall semester. And so we're there to support them after registration ends as well. Go to the next slide. I've mentioned drop-in advising a couple of times, and I would recommend you not take a photo of this image that's there. It's from a past semester, but I am going to share the relevant information about drop-in advising. The only thing that's different is we don't offer the ALTC Writing Center as a location. We have virtual as a location, and the dates are a little different. But all college advisors will be available in person April 7th through 10th, 1 to 4 p.m. in various locations of campus. And so that's Monday through Thursday of that week. Friday of that week, we don't have any new time tickets open, so that's why we don't have in-person drop-ins, but we'll still have virtual drop-ins during that Friday of that week as well. Our locations across campus that we'll see students drop in, no appointment needed, will be Mussafer Hall, which is the little number 1 on that map. We'll also see them at the LBC, which is the number 3, or the Hub Garage, which is number 4. or we'll see them on Zoom. They can join that link. If they just Google virtual advising Tulane, the website will come up and the Zoom link is right there. Like I said, no appointment is needed to come see us in drop-ins. And this is really just to focus on quick questions and any registration issues, like if they're frustrated because they can't figure out one of the yellow banner error codes in their register add drop tab. Encourage them to just go to drop-ins and ask an advisor about it. And I can guarantee that we've seen any and all errors that a student has experienced, and so we're usually able to diffuse those quite quickly. Other quick questions would be, what would be a good backup option to this class? Or, I saw this class filled up. I'm not sure what to do. Like this was a class I really needed for a requirement. And so trying to just diffuse kind of the stress of decision making around, finding replacement courses or building that wish list or running into holds or errors that they weren't expecting. We really do want students to check those errors and holds before their time slot opens, just to really reduce that stress. Their time slots are available now. They can see, what errors they might start experiencing now. And so we hope that they're able to navigate those before their time slot opens so that they don't have to run over and come find us to help have us help them. More big picture conversations and like planning for the future or making tweaks in their schedule can be addressed in one-on-one appointments after registration with their assigned advisor. Because how drop-in advising works is that I or one of the other assistant directors will be working a check-in table at all of these in-person locations, and we get them connected with the first advisor that's available. So it's almost always not their assigned advisor, and so we want them to reserve those kind of big picture conversations and things that, a more tailored conversation to them for their assigned advisor. So we usually encourage students, bring your quick questions to drop-ins, your big issues that you're, working with right now, and then talk about the big picture stuff later. And then, like I said, leadership team is on hand for current semester concerns and support. I'll be working the check-in table at various drop-in advising events throughout priority registration. And then also, like, if a student really does have some kind of current semester issue and their advisor isn't available and they really need to talk to somebody, we're on campus available to meet with students. They can come to Musford Hall and, we'll get them connected with somebody and make sure they get the help they need. And that's where you can find us.
Most of these resources were put in here in order for you to have links. I know Penny loves having lots of links. So those of you who are thinking about your student and what they might do this summer, there are a couple different options. They could take a class through Tulane. They could consider a study abroad program, although some of those deadlines are probably fast approaching. If your student's a first-year student, it's a good time for them to kind of look at the resources and kind of browse. And then next year at this time, they could get more serious about looking. There could be undergraduate research or looking at taking a class closer to home, and then the financial aid office can also support students who need different funding for summer. Most year-round funding does not cover summer term. So it's important that your student has a conversation with the financial aid office if that's something that's important to them. And this again is more of a review of all of the different resources that we've mentioned today: how to find the DegreeWorks audit, how to access the university catalog, the schedule of classes, just our bread and butter for adding and dropping classes throughout the year, academic calendars to help us frame our decision-making processes and really give us some deadlines to make those decisions and get the information needed prior to making those decisions. And then offices that might have registration holds include lots of different offices, but accounts receivable in particular, or student health immunization office is also important. So that's really it for us. We have some questions. You can move the slide forward. That's fine. My name and number is at the end. You're welcome to ask questions. I will let Penny kind of manage the Q&A portion, but This is my email, hcooper2@tulane.edu, and my direct line if you want to jot it down in case you think your student needs some kind of specific support at this moment or some point in the future.
Oh, I apologize, y'all. Give me just a second. Heather, I was just going to ask that you explain a little bit more about what the hold means and like what effect that would have on students' ability to register if there's a hold.
The
Just
registration holds are placed for different reasons. We don't place them, and so we can't lift them. Um, Most students are alerted multiple times through their email that they have a registration hold. Actually, all students would be. There would never be something that's like suddenly placed on their schedule. I'm sorry, placed on their account. And for any reason, it's usually not sudden at all. It's just something that they might not have noticed until they sat down to register. Um, so I don't know how much more detail you want on that, Penny.
I think that's good. I think
Yeah.
just to explain that it might mean there's a payment that needs to be made, a fine that has to
Yeah.
be reconciled or something.
And oftentimes it's just a conversation. It doesn't mean like, oh, my bill, like, have to pay everything. Like, oftentimes it's just checking in with those offices and saying, hey, this is my plan. Or it could be clicking a button on like accepting a reward for financial aid, or, there's some simple fixes, and then there are always more complex fixes, but it's important that they get in touch with that office because we can't lift any holds that any other office has added.
So the first question that's submitted is if a student wants to change their major advisor, can they do so? And if so, what's the process?
That's actually a really good question. It's going to be really specific to every major. And so I think that if there is concerns or they want to work with a different major advisor, it's usually a department that has a faculty advisor. And if that's the case, they could talk to the faculty advisor that they would like to work with and to see if it's a possibility. Blake, do you have any other insight?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that this person means major advisors. I will clarify that, like, our department, college advising, we do have a form where students can request a different NTC college advisor for various reasons. But for major advisors, yeah, I would recommend that maybe they talk to a faculty member that they would rather have be their advisor if they don't want to, address the advisor directly. They could reach out to the chair of the department if they are unsure of, or if they just don't want to like bring that to the major advisor that they want to switch from. Yes, I can see the.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but not all faculty members serve as advisors all the time. Wouldn't that be correct? And so
Yeah.
it might be that a student has had a faculty member for a class and they really, liked that professor, like their style or something. But it might not be that it is part of that professor's responsibilities at that given semester or that particular
That's right.
year to
That's
serve
right.
as an advisor for majors in their department. And so it might be that that is a professor that the student can just connect with, during their office hours if they just want to kind of check in with them about things about the field, or if they think that there might be some career advice they can give based on, that field of study or something, or if they want to go on to graduate school. So the students can still access support from professors, even if it's not in that advising role. And I think we would all say that the more students get comfortable in seeking out professors for all kinds of advice is useful, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every professor is going to be serving the majors in their department as in that advising role for course registration. Does that sound
That's
accurate to
correct.
you guys?
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
correct.
I definitely, yeah, because some departments they'll have more of like the adjunct faculty, like lower level faculty, be serve as advisors, and that person will move on to another institution or go on or like an upper level faculty go on sabbatical, and they didn't realize that they didn't reassign the students. And so I think the best thing, yes, is to probably reach out to the chair or an ideal faculty member for
Yeah.
a major advisor.
Or could be for, a period of a couple of years, the professor's course load changes or some of their other research things increase. And so they're always balancing through those different roles that they play besides just teaching their courses. And so it's just important to kind of understand how faculty members' lives and work lives work. So,
Yeah, and not to belabor the point, but I do think like I like your point about kind of finding the people that you want to talk to. I really think of college as a time to kind of find your board of directors, for lack of a better term.
mhm.
So there's going to be people like myself. I don't carry a caseload of students, but I do consider myself as having 8,000 students who are welcome to reach out to me. Maybe not all at once, that would be not good, but who are welcome to reach out to me and get support when they're just a little lost. Like I'm happy to have that conversation. Doesn't mean I can become your day-to-day assigned advisor. I will be terrible at processing paperwork and like terrible at kind of being available right when you need me. But in terms of those big conversations, we're here for it. And those who's listed as a major advisor is one thing, but who in the department checks over classes and helps create the curriculum. Like there might be other folks who can also answer those questions. And then who do I trust and who do I want to kind of be my big A advisors like around campus? That might be a friend or might be a peer, but hopefully it's also a mixture of friends, peers, and adults on campus with staff and faculty titles. So it
Especially
all works.
students who might be considering graduate school start looking at potential graduate schools, and then they look at the biographies of their professors for their major department that are all online on the department websites. They might see a professor, oh, I had this professor 2 years ago, and they got their master's degree or PhD at the same place that I'm investigating. Let me reach out and see if they would be willing to set up a short appointment with me to offer me some insight. So we want students to get used to utilizing people in sort of that guide role, even if it's not in this course advisor kind of function. So let me look at another question. So another question from a parent is, do core curriculum classes overlap with major minor course requirements?
I would say yes, that they often do. It's obviously going to, or not obviously, but it's going to depend on the major minors that the student is studying. I think that, students are able, whenever they are searching around for classes in the schedule of classes, if they know what like major classes that they're looking for, it's important to pay attention to the attributes area of that class where it will say if there are core curriculum attributes attached to the class that the student is looking for. So like students who are studying sociology, they don't really need to worry about their social and behavioral science requirement because they're going to take plenty of social and behavioral science courses as a sociology student. Or somebody who's studying business, they never really need to worry about their also their social and behavioral science requirement because of economics. Their formal reasoning and their additional math, natural science is going to be covered by calculus and stats that they have to take for their major. And so often, yes, the core does overlap a lot with what students will be taking. But then also there's things that students will need to go out of their way or like search for to take. Like a business student isn't going to have a lab science be a part of their curriculum. And so they need to be intentional about when they're going to take that lab science. Another thing, or like, so another thing is also like our service learning requirements. Some majors more than others offer service learning courses that are associated with major requirements. And so some students, are able to find a service learning that's related to a course in their major, and then others have to seek something out that's maybe related to an interest of theirs or another core requirement. So yes, it's very common for core classes to overlap with major and minor requirements, and students are able to see which attributes classes have in the schedule of classes and kind of see where that'll plug in on their degree audit. Because courses are allowed to satisfy both a core and a major requirement in most cases. There are some cases not, but that's all why it's always good to talk to their advisor and check in about what they're taking.
Good information. The next question is there a checklist that students are working from? Is that what's in the degree works feature?
Yeah, Penny, I was gonna post the link to information about the degree audit to answer this if that's allowed, but if not, then you can send it later.
Yeah, just send it to me and I'll send it to everybody.
Yeah, okay. So the basically the link, the checklist is, yes, the degree audit is a form of the checklist. For students early on, it can be a little overwhelming because they have a lot left to do. But as students get closer to graduation, the degree audit can be a useful reminder of kind of what's left. I would recommend for students just at the front end of all of this, get familiar with the degree audit. It's only available to those students and it is unique to the individual student. So they have to log into their Gibson portal in order to view it. And the other resource that's not so much a checklist is but it is in a list form, is the catalog. Different departments will also have on their websites very specific semester by semester plans. That's usually our most structured majors, things like engineering and architecture, where almost everyone is taking the same classes from one semester to the next. Lot of the ones that don't have that are because the classes that they take are flexible. There's not a specific order that they have to do. Um, but the catalog, any departmental resources, and the degree audit all work together to kind of create the list. And I always love a good old-fashioned spreadsheet. Students will take all that information and not be sure how to process it. So a lot of times my successful peer advisors and students will make their own little spreadsheet with like, okay, this is what I have left, this is what I've done. And it helps them kind of feel like they're moving forward through the curriculum.
I remember that one semester when my peer mentor for my TIDES course showed the new students the degree audit. It was just like the light bulb went on around their, above their head. They were just like so excited to see that resource because of how practical and useful it is. So,
Definitely. And another thing on degree audit is, especially if a student is undeclared in their major, it's really important that they are meeting with advisors semi-regularly to talk about their requirements, because the audit looks a little different when a student is undeclared versus when they're declared in a major. It's a really can be a complex tool for students to understand, especially if they're early on in their time at Tulane. And so sometimes the requirements reflected on the audit may not be 100% correct because that department updated their curriculum a year ago, but the undeclared audit never got updated or something like that. And so the audit becomes really more powerful once they are declared in their majors and minors, their programs are set in stone. And so it's important they're kind of using all their resources to determine classes if they're undeclared in their major to make sure they're, taking the things that make the most sense.
And Blake, would it be a good strategy for a student to review their audit before they meet with an advisor and then use that as one of their talking points with their advisors? So they're kind of looking at it together?
Yeah, our training with advisors is advisors are going to pull that up right when they're meeting with the student. And
Okay.
at least for me in my practice, I always have the audit pulled up and I'm like referring to it when we're meeting to make sure that we're on the same page and kind of
Right.
just modeling how to read it correctly and things, because it can be hard to read your first couple of times. But yes, definitely, I love working with students who are really into their audit and really like have good questions about like what does this option mean and what is like that's always really encouraging to see that a student is using their resources.
The next question is, can a student study at another university over a winter session and get transfer credit?
Yes, the short answer is I know we're kind of running out of time, so I'll just say absolutely. We have a transfer credit specialist that they can meet with to talk about that. It really is more about the dates and the class itself being allowed to be transferred than it is about the fact that it exists in a winter session elsewhere.
Okay, and we're going to do two last questions here really quickly because it's past 7. So the next question is, do the students need to finish their core curriculum requirements to be able to declare a major?
No, that's actually the opposite of what we want students to do. We want students to take their core requirements all through their college experience, which is different from my college experience. I also took all my core requirements in my first year, but Tulane is of the idea. I'm sorry, my cat will not leave me alone. But that our model is we want students to infuse their core curriculum throughout their 4 years if possible. And so, for some students, it's going to be different for them. They want to knock those things out and would rather focus on things later, which we can help students navigate. But no, students, kind of our model around major declaration is we want them to do it by the end of their fourth semester, by the end of their sophomore year. So that they're getting major advising and that they're kind of making that decision. But no, students do not need to finish their core requirements before they declare their major. We kind of hope that they're able to infuse that learning, that holistic learning throughout their 4 years. And our model works better if they kind of, spread those out rather than trying to take them all in the first 2 years. Because if they're trying to take only core requirements in the first 2 years, they're not exploring in a major like we want them to.
And I will just put a plug in for the fact that in April, there is a major declaration ceremony for sophomores because that's the time at which they have to declare a major. And so the Newcomb Tulane College makes a ceremony out of that, and they are awarded a pin to kind of mark that milestone. And they can invite a Tulane professor or staff member or someone else who's been instrumental in their path at Tulane and in their journey so far to mark that occasion with them. So you'll see some information about that in the next parent newsletter that'll go out, but it happens in April and it's part of sophomore week. So we have one last question, and I think we'll answer this really quickly and refer you to a webinar that's about study abroad. So this question is, if my son would like to study abroad for 1 year during junior year, when should he discuss possible schools and programs with a study abroad advisor? And I think we would say as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to start thinking. I mean, the deadline for application is usually February or kind of that early semester of the semester prior to leaving. So I know our study abroad advisors would have a lot more time in the fall because we have so many people who apply in the spring. So it's really a great idea for them to go to a study abroad advisor early in the fall when things are a little quieter for that office, and start planning and thinking about the different programs, and then preparing for things like major declaration and some of the processes that you'll need to apply.
And I'll just let everybody know that we have a family webinar on the topic of study abroad. We actually have two for that sort of exploring the possibilities phase. One for the programs that are offered through the Freeman School of Business, and then the other for the Newcomb Tulane College Office of Study Abroad. And so it could be wise for a parent to kind of skim through those two resources that are on our website at families.tulane.edu. So you kind of have an idea of the overview. And then the student can always use part of the summer to review the study abroad website and look at what's possible, do some reading and some background investigation on their own before they start talking with an advisor about the specifics. So folks, we're going to have to wrap things up. Let's see, there is one last question. What's the contact information for the transfer credit specialist? And so that is on the advising website, I believe. So I'll put
It
that
is.
in the follow-up message that we'll email to everybody, hopefully by Friday or Friday afternoon. So thank you everyone for participating with us this evening. I really want to thank Blake and Heather for their time and expertise that they've offered tonight, and just wish all of you a good evening. And please let us know if you have further questions about this topic, then email advising or email Heather, and you see her email address here. If you have suggestions for other webinar topics, or you want to give feedback just about the family webinar series in general, then please email families@tulane.edu and I'll review that. If you have a question or you're not even sure who you should direct it to, you're welcome to email families@tulane.edu and I'll forward that on to the appropriate resource on campus. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great evening. Good night.